Hello, everybody. This is the review we were supposed to do the other day on a live stream, but somebody's Afghan internet.
Don't bring up my Afghanistan internet, because it wasn't just me. This is your fault, too.
I tried and failed. I'm still learning OBS.
Honestly, I'm not sure if it was the OBS. Well, I mean, obviously OBS was part of the problem, but I think it might have been just taking up too much of your CPU.
That could have also been it.
Like
Maybe my computer just can't handle it right now.
Yeah.
I'm still working on getting a decent computer.
Yeah, and eventually we will be there. So for the next couple months, we probably are not going to be live streaming. I am sorry, but my internet just can't take it because my internet is shit here. His computer can't take OBS plus the streaming stuff that we would need to do. So we do apologize for that, but we will, especially once I'm in my new place. I'm moving in the middle of April, middle to end of April. I'll be moving into my new place, and once we're there, live streaming will be a thing for us. We will live stream every once in a while.
Yeah, you get to hear me being a drunken asshole as we review bad movies and a sober asshole when we review good movies.
And then you get to listen to me say, and I don't know, fucking fantastic. I don't know. I don't remember what all I say, but I know I say, a lot.
Doing these has really brought out how much of we talk badly.
How much we talk badly.
We don't word good. That aside, our apologies for our terrible technical and verbal skills. Let's get on to the real reason why we're talking about this today.
Today, Wild Tanuki and I get red-pilled.
Hard, man. Red-pilled hard.
Oh, God. I got red-pilled right in the ass at the end of this movie.
This movie, I don't get emotional for a lot of stuff, but man, this documentary just tore me to pieces.
Yeah.
And Devil, I gotta say, you were right. I almost watched this movie drunk, and Devil repeatedly told me, do not watch this movie drunk. You have to watch it sober. So I slept it off. I woke up at like 3 a.m. the next day. I was completely sober. I watched it. Oh, I'm so glad I didn't watch that drunk because I would have just been a mess.
Yeah, it's very emotional. And the funny part about it is, I wasn't sad through most of it. I was pretty pissed off through most of it. And I think the movie does, well, at least for me, it did that. Because it starts out and they talk to a few MRAs, things like that, and they get their perspective on a few issues. And then they start talking to feminists. So what do these feminists do? They basically say, oh yeah, there's this issue, but fuck the issue. MRAs are bad. MRA bad, everything else is feminism.
Not that that's a bad thing. Like, feminists, for the most part, you get a mixed bag. There are the good ones, there are the bad ones. But these people were treating MRAs like they compared them to Nazis, essentially.
Yeah, not necessarily Nazis. I mean, because they never used that terminology. But they did. I think they did use the word fascist at one point. But that's completely beside the point. They treated them as if, no matter what they treated them like, or what they called them, I should say, no matter what they called them, they treated them like the enemy. They did not want to talk about it.
It was purely us versus them.
There was no point in which they said anything charitable about MRAs at all. There was more than once where the MRAs said nice, maybe not nice things, but charitable things about feminism in general.
They gave it the fair shake.
And that really pissed me off. And then they started going into some of the personal stories, and I think this is where a lot of people got the feels. I had some friends tell me, just try and hang on to the anger as long as you can, because, the next part coming up is going to be really sad. And I think I took that and I internalized the anger so much that I just stayed angry through the rest of the movie. But this next part, when these guys start talking about the personal stories, I think that's when a lot of people get the feels. That's what happened with you, right?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different cases where guys have been screwed over because of specific laws set up, or how things are favored to women in court, or how there's not a specific program set for men, so they suffer because they can't do anything about it. I've seen a lot of different cases like that. But the thing that bothers me the most is whenever kids are involved. And the first story is about a guy. His wife tricked him into getting her pregnant, and he was happy. Well, he tried to be happy, and she kept holding the fact that she'll take his son away if he doesn't follow exactly what she says. And then finally he just couldn't couldn't stand it. They got a divorce. And he got to see his son, but under very specific circumstances for a while.
You know, let's not go too deep into anything.
Sorry, it's one of those stories where when you start listening to it, it's hard to stop.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I want people to watch the movie so that way they can feel.
Even though what we could tell you wouldn't affect how you see the movie, it's something you really have to go into blind to gauge your emotional reaction to this. Because there are parts in that film where when you see it the first time through, it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot.
You know, and I'm not a very emotional person.
Oh, trust me, that's absolutely correct.
And so I was mad, and that's, for the most part, I have two emotions: happy, mad. That's about it. I don't really get sad too often. I do occasionally, but things like I can really turn myself off from the plight of other people. And I know that sounds really shitty, but I think it's something that my brain has conditioned itself to do with doing what I do for work. I work in healthcare, so, you know, I see people die occasionally. So you have to be able to turn that off. But some of these stories, you know, I was just mad about the entire situation. You know, they bring up like things like the Duluth model, which to me is an affront to everything that our justice system stands for. Everything.
Justice is supposed to be blind, but with the Duluth model, it's almost like Animal Farms. Like, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. That's basically how the Duluth model works out, where men are always seen as the perpetrator. Always. Even if you get attacked. If the guy gets attacked, and this is even stated in the movie, it's just, the only thing the cop said was, if she starts attacking you, just run. And what kind of justice system is that? What kind of justice system is it where the victim, the person who's being assaulted and abused, has to run away and has no support whatsoever against them? Not by law, not by the police force, not anything. And they're going to be constantly seen as a victim. What the fuck kind of system is that?
Well, and I think specifically what the cop said to him is really important, because he says, if she starts to attack you, get out of there as quickly as you can, because if she so much as gets a cut or a bruise from her attacking you, we will take you to jail.
Now I apologize for getting a little heated.
No. Dude, don't apologize, because this is a very sensitive subject. It's something that does need to be talked about. You know what I mean?
I do realize that, but I would like to, I prefer to look at things with a calm demeanor on such a serious subject, if at all possible. But if those emotions do boil up, obviously I have to react in some way.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm getting at, is this is something that, I mean, I hate the our side, their side bullshit, but it's very true, especially with feminism and these identity politics groups. It is really an us versus them, because if it's not us versus them, it's them over us. You know what I mean?
Which is a terrible thought. It should not be that way in any case. The way it should be is that we should see how all these individual cases stack up and how each individual case is structured. What happened in this case? Like, what was the circumstances? Who was the perpetrator? Who was all that? The way it should be. Now, in my opinion, we are so closely within rights in the first world that before, it used to be we had to paint things with broad strokes. And the way it should have been is that we should have done more specific strokes as time went on, down to where it's a single brush stroke, but we don't anymore. And it really should just be a case-by-case basis with a lot of problems now.
Well, I mean, okay, let's just look at it this way. And I know that we've talked about this a few times. We're not going to be a political channel. At least we're going to try not to be. But there are some things that we're going to talk about that the politics seeps through. And obviously this is one of them, because this is something that both you and I feel very passionately about. And I kind of want to use this to kind of get this out of the way, because, you know, I did bring up the us versus them mentality. They really control the mainstream narrative, right? So they have all of the people backing them. Now, if we don't get our voices heard, they will just dominate the narrative and put our interests below everybody else's, below every woman, every person of color, which I'm going to point this out, and I know this has been pointed out several times, but person of color is basically colored person. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. And it's not us that says that. If it were up to me, everybody would still be a black person, a Hispanic person, a whatever person. Doesn't matter. Saying person
because
of color.
That has no bearing on how anybody should treat you.
Here's the thing, though. The term person of color, which this really does not belong in this video, but I'm bringing it up anyways because I'm an asshole. Person of color is not an inclusive thing. It's an exclusive thing. It's excluding white people. That's the only thing it's doing.
See, this is why identity politics is pure insanity. Because there's an argument right now saying, are Hispanics actual people of color? Or are Hispanics actually white?
You want the honest truth on that? It depends. It depends on the person. Because when I grew up in a neighborhood that had 5 families that were not Hispanic. One of them was black. The other 4 were white in my neighborhood. My next door neighbors, though, they were Hispanic. They were my best friends for many, many years. The first child in that family was a white Mexican. But everybody else, brown Mexicans. I mean, like I said, it depends.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So,
but that's what happens, is that the issues get hit into identity politics where it's like, even within the groups, like even within Mexicans, it's like, oh, I'm a browner Mexican than you, so you have to listen to me. Or, oh, I have a darker complexion and I'm black than this other guy who's black who has a lighter complexion. So that means I have more oppression points than him. And that's not how it should be.
No, it's not.
It doesn't matter how light skin you are, how dark skin you are, or anything in between. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. You should all be judged the same under the eyes of the law.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. There are deep biases within the judicial system, but you should not blame the person who's doing those biases because of their color. You should do it because of their ideology.
Well, and here's another thing, though. You can't blame people who are outside of the judicial system for things that the judicial system does. If you have a problem with what the judicial system is doing, you take it up with the other 2 factions of government. Branches, I should say. Take it up with the other 2 branches of government. Find a way to fix the fucking problem. Don't just bitch about all white people because all white people aren't doing it. I'm sorry, I'm not a fucking judge.
I think we're getting a little off topic.
We are way off topic.
See, this is why we're the ruiner of things, because we just go on massive tangents that make no sense.
I'm going to leave all of this in here so that way the people at home, the people that are listening to us 2 assholes right now, can see what I have to edit out. Because honestly, 90% of the time when we go off topic, it's all me. I started.
Yeah. I really need to make a habit of reining you back in.
Don't do it. It's less fun that way. Although it does.
It really makes editing a bitch, I'm sure.
Well, we'll put it this way. If I stopped going off topic, I would have to edit at least 2 less hours.
Anyways, now back on hand. Yeah, the whole system of the Duluth model really just, it binds the justice system. And I'm not saying, obviously, that I think it's bad that it looks that way, because there are some situations where, yeah, the guy's the perpetrator. But it makes it so female criminals, and I say female criminals by me that the ones who actually have done the perpetrating get off very easily with much less harsher sentences than what they really should have. How many times have you seen it where a woman has been just brushed off for having sex with a minor, and how hard the punishment has been if it's a guy?
Okay, there's a study that has found that men receive 63% higher sentences than women for the same crime. 63%. You want to talk about a fucking wage gap or a fucking some sort of gap for genders? That is a fucking gender gap. And not only that, but men are convicted of crimes at a seriously higher rate than women are. I mean, yes, overall women, I do believe, commit less crime, but that doesn't mean that they should just get off when they do horrible things.
Okay, yeah, that's a crazy fucking statistic. And so many people just go, oh, well, women do bad things too, so it's okay that crime statistic's like that.
Well, and not only that, but a lot of people say, oh, well, the crimes that men commit, like let's say the murder, they're more heinous than the crimes that women commit. Honestly, unless there's some sort of torture involved or some sort of long drawn out process involved to that person's death, death is death. If a woman shoots a guy directly in the face, or a guy shoots a woman directly in the face, or woman on woman or man on man, or it doesn't matter who's killing who. If a person kills a person, doesn't matter. If it's a quick boom, headshot, dead, these 2 people should have the exact same sentences. Let's say it's their first time committing any kind of crime. Boom, sentenced exactly the same.
And on top of that, I disagree with hate crime laws.
Oh, me too.
Because a crime is a crime. It doesn't matter what race you are, or if you were angry against that race. You committed a crime. It shouldn't matter that you're racist against that person. The crime is what should matter.
See, and I would not be against hate crime laws if they worked in every direction, but they don't.
That's the problem with a lot of these laws, or like affirmative action. It's like, once you get to a certain level of acceptance, when do you get rid of those laws?
But I don't know. If a black person kills a white person because the person's white, hate crime. If a white person kills a black person because they're black, hate crime. straight person, gay person, straight person, all the fucking same. All hate. At that point, you can just get rid of hate crime laws and just make it, if a human kills a human, boom, murder law. I don't know. Anyways, coming back on topic yet again. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. That is my fault.
That's kind of what we do. But back on topic, the next segment that came up wasn't laws. It was
male and female genital mutilation.
Oh, God.
Which there was one very it's disgusting and sad at the same time, this story. What they did was they brought up the story of this young boy who had a voluntary circumcision. His mom volunteered him, and they accidentally cut the tip of his penis off. And that, like I said, I work in healthcare. That made my stomach churn a little bit. And it's just horrible. Honestly, personally, even if I was an MRA, which I'm not, but if I was...
yeah, neither of us are. It's just, we have very, I would say, outside the usual spectrum of political leanings.
Yeah, well, the thing is I'm not an MRA, but I think that that MRAs should be heard and things like that. I'm not an activist. I'm an advocate, but I'm not an activist. I'm just not. And I don't think that I will be ever. So, the circumcision thing, to me, it's not that big of an issue. To me, it's not.
If less is a medical need, then it's unnecessary altogether. Obviously, you need to take better care hygienically, but seeing the procedure done. Yeah. If you see the procedure done, it's the same as if you were to see the same procedure happening for a female circumcision.
Yeah, and I get that.
So why would you why would you give full rights to one gender's body as opposed to the other? Why didn't I have rights to my body when I was born?
And you know what? I get that. And personally, I probably wouldn't, if I ever have a son, I probably won't. And, a lot of people try and use the excuse of, well, it's that way the kid looks like the father. First off, I don't think my kids will ever see my dick that often, unless it's an accident.
Honestly, who the fuck thinks their kid's going to be looking at the father's dick?
Nobody.
Like, if it's an accident, it's whatever, then you explain it to them like a fucking adult.
Yeah.
But by saying that, it's just like there's a whole bunch of other reasons, obviously. But the first reason the circumcision started was a way to stop kids from masturbating, which I will tell you this, that is not going to stop kids from masturbating.
Didn't stop me, shit. But I mean, it just doesn't stop teenagers. Teenagers are they're gonna do bad things to themselves. That's just the way it is.
And to continuously say, well, that's how the father looked. Well, that's how the father looked. That's a terrible way to look at it.
And honestly, we shouldn't look at it as, oh, well, it's part of the religion, because then female genital mutilation and the Muslim religion.
Yeah, that gets completely justified.
Exactly, and it's a fucking stupid argument.
Not that I'm an anti-theist, but it is a tad ridiculous. I think everybody should have the want to go through that later in life if they so choose, but I want to be able to have rights over my body from the beginning.
Yeah.
The last thing was talking about MGTOWs and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. So
there are obviously other movements aside from MRAs.
Yeah. And they touch on a few of them briefly. I think that... honestly, the only one I can't stand at all that I would never give the time of day to somebody who did this are the pickup artists, or PUA. I'm sorry, that's just not something that I'm down with. Those people can go fuck themselves.
They leave such a bad reputation on people.
Yeah, and
especially if it's like a girl somewhere for the first time, and that's like the first person she meets. That's going to be her impression of dating for the rest of her life.
Yeah, like they bring up MGTOW, and honestly, MGTOW, there are some good MGTOWs, there are some bad MGTOWs.
When you get, as always, once you get to the far fringes of something, that's when the more crazier people get out.
Yeah, like that fucking Markov guy. Fuck that guy. So, like I said, I was angry throughout most of this film, right? It was the very last line of this entire film, and I'm not going to say what it was, but the very last line of this film made me tear up. And not very many things have gotten me to tear up. Like I said, I'm very dead inside. But the very last line, and I think it was because I was so angry for so long that when I heard that, I knew that it was the end of the film, and I was able to let everything else go. And I teared up a little bit. I didn't cry. I mean, I know
glassy-eyed.
Yeah, I know that there are people that haven't. I get it. This movie's very emotional.
It's one of those things where when you hear it and you know that something's changed within the world after watching this, it really comes home what some of these issues really mean. Because at the end of the day, it's not about one sex being more superior to the other or one being better than the other. It's about having equality where a guy has just as much control of his body as a woman, where everything's a law is given out fairly instead of without bias.
Yeah.
Instead with bias. And it's just, it drives home, okay, something needs to change.
Yeah.
And people need to step back regardless of their ideology, regardless of what they're thinking, and take a good long look in the mirror and say, is what's going on in this world right?
And based on what I've seen, especially from this movie, no, it's not right. It's not fair. And I'm sure that there are some things that the feminists talk about that are not fair, but there's one thing I will definitely hand to the MRAs, at least the ones that were featured in this film. They do talk about things that the issues that women face too.
And don't get me wrong, some of the people that were on there, I disagree with immensely on a lot of other topics. Because there's some people that were interviewed that I can't stand. But just because I don't like a person does not make their views invalid.
Yeah.
What it truly means to understand being equal is when your enemy speaks or when a person you hate speaks, you listen and you listen to their words. And when they say something correct, you agree with them, even though you can't stand them. That's how we're going to move forward.
So this is going to ruin how everything's feeling right now. But there were two other parts that I just remembered that were in the movie that we didn't touch on.
Fuck! Yeah.
But, you know, how the feminists protesting and everything like that goes. I mean, although we've seen all of that. I mean, we've seen most of the stuff that was in the film.
Yeah, we saw that long ago.
Yeah, and then there was something else, and I forgot what it was, but it wasn't that important.
It was Big Red's interview.
Yeah, which, honestly, I mentioned the feminists' interviews, and that's fine. That's enough for that. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. These fine people get out of here and go watch this movie. So
absolutely, you should definitely see this movie. If anything, to either open your eyes a little bit more or get a different perspective on things.
And that's what I was going to say. For those that don't fall on quote unquote our side, you know, at least see what our side is saying. We see what your side is saying quite a bit. Check out what we're talking about. I mean, if you don't agree, that's fine. You're allowed to not agree. That's perfectly acceptable. At least hear out what the other side says.
At least be well-rounded in your argument.
This is the best way to defeat the other side. Know what they're talking about. Because if you don't know what they're talking about, you have no leg to stand on.
That's how you win arguments, is by studying your enemy and studying their viewpoints.
Well, and you know, I don't, especially in.
I hate using the term enemy though.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say.
I hate saying that because at the end of the day, we're all people. We have different ideologies. We have different biases. We have things that we see in different perspectives. We have different likes and loves and musical tastes and love of food and all that. And we're all just different. And what we need to do is look past the things that we don't like about people and try to hear them out.
And that's kind of how I feel. I don't like using the term enemy because it makes it...
It really does make it us versus them.
Well, and like I mentioned earlier, in a way it is.
And it also makes it look like they're the bad guy.
Well, when somebody becomes your enemy, let's talk about like in the most dire situation, in a war situation. When somebody becomes your enemy, you can dehumanize them, devalue them as a human. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to make everybody the same. We're trying to lift everybody up to the same level. And that's the difference between, quote unquote, our side and their side. They want to push our side down instead of lifting everybody up. You know what I mean?
That's the thing about equality is that you don't get it by giving handouts to people.
You don't get it by taking rights away from one group. You get it by giving rights to every group.
So having the opportunity for everybody having the same opportunities, that's all you can do.
That's the best you can do. Let me rephrase. That's not even the best you can do. That's the best you can hope for. Because in the end, it's a struggle to try and keep everybody equal. I mean, because not everybody that's equal is going to be happy.
As it's stated time and time again, you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah. So I would like to say, thank you to Cassie Jaye and everybody at the Red Pill movie.
Yeah, everybody who kickstarted it, you are all fantastic. Cassie Jaye, you are such a lovely individual.
And we do thank you for this movie. This this was a great movie. In a way, it really helped even us.
Yeah. We obviously have our own opinions on things, but it also helps shine light on things that we hadn't even thought of.
With that being said, I think that now it's a good time to wrap this up and say goodbye. And thank you guys for checking this out. And if you have any comments, if you watched the movie, you liked it, you hated it, leave us a comment. Let us know. We would like to talk with you guys about it. Thanks.
And thank everybody for listening. And also, Miss Jaye, thank you. Thank you very much.
Goodbye, guys.